Hello and welcome everyone at the Indie Football Podcast. How has all this, in terms of course, referees have a huge participation role in VAR and all those things. So you of course have very beautifully summarized your initial years around refereeing. Tell us more about how did you see the world of refereeing change with technology, VAR, AI, and where do you see this? How do you see AI and technology really dictating the future of the sport?
Look, VAR, I think, is here to stay.
Yeah.
Many people wanted it removed. The English Premier League teams voted on it and said that each of the 20 Premier League teams were given a vote as to whether they wanted it retained, or it's not a FIFA standard, by the way. Each country's association can say yes or no, we want it or we don't want it. So the Premier Leagues voted on it, and only one team said they wanted it removed. All the other teams said, no, let's keep it. And that one team was Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Yes.
So they said they wanted it removed. It's very important to point out that VAR stands for Video Assistant Referee. Emphasis on assistant. Video assistant referee. Assistant. It's an assistant or an assistance to the referee to help him make a decision. Again, I pointed out, Law 5 of this FIFA law book.
If only,
Law 5 deals with referees.
If only we got paid every time you showed this book in this show. I mean,
If only I got paid.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Law 5 deals with refereeing. There are 17 laws in the laws of the game. 17 laws with lots of sections and subsections and subsections, etc., etc. But 17 laws. Law 5 deals with refereeing and the duties of the referee. And it clearly states, and I'm going to paraphrase now, it clearly states that the referee's decision is final. The referee's decision is final. He is the boss. He's the man who makes the decision. Not VAR, not the assistant referees with the flags, not the guys up in what they have in England in Stockley Park, which is ridiculous. It's a centre. I think the VAR guy should be in an outside broadcast truck outside the ground making those decisions. But be that as it may, the English tend to do things their own way, and they have their own way of doing things, and they think that they are the best at everything, and if they could only look at themselves in the mirror, they'd soon discover that other people are just as good or better at doing things. You never see these problems with VAR at international games. You only see them in the English Premier League. And last week, where are we now today? Wednesday. Last Friday, there was a game between Brighton and Bournemouth, or Brighton and Southampton. And it took them almost 5 minutes to arrive at a decision as to whether a player was offside and interfering with play. It's very simple on the offside bit. I'm still talking about refereeing now. Very simple on the offside bit. To be offside, you have to be interfering with play, interfering with an opponent, or seeking to gain an advantage by being in an offside position. If any of those components are there, then you're offside. But they have, oh my goodness, they have messed up the offside law, which is law 11, and what was the other one? Handball, which is part of law 12. They have messed it up so terribly that it's hard to know. The old wording on handball was that it was the movement of the hand or the arm towards the ball, not the ball towards the hand or the arm. So if your hand is by your side and the ball hits you, if your arm is static or moving away, that is not handball. If you're moving your hand towards the ball, that is handball. It's very simple. Why
Yeah.
complicate the thing? Now they're talking about, making the body bigger, but your arms being outstretched. And I,
Yeah, there are all kinds of things going on. And
I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
cringe. I cringe. I honestly, and it takes them so long. And again, I have to say it. And sorry, guys, over in the UK. And Keith Hackett is one of my very, very good friends. I have him on my show, my Monday review show, every Monday night at 8 o'clock here. He's on my
okay.
show, and he and I agree on this. And he's a former FIFA referee and former head of the PGMOL as well, the head of the referees, as I was in South Africa. And we both agree that they have messed it up so completely that it's hard to know now what is offside and what's not offside, and what's
Yeah,
a handball and what's not a handball. And Arsene Wenger has now been employed by FIFA to go around the world and look at different scenarios and come up with suggestions and ideas as to what to do. Now, I think he was at the head of the posse, as it were, to say now that this part here
yeah,
is under the arm, this
yeah,
part here, you can now score with, where before
yeah,
you couldn't. The handball was from the tip of the fingers
yeah,
all the way up to the top of the shoulder. So even if the ball hit you there and you did that, that was deemed to be handball. Now it's
Right.
not. So how can you distinguish whether the ball, if it hits you, if it's under the armpit here, how do you know if it hit here or hit down here? I
yeah,
mean, it's just
Interesting.
ridiculous. It's just they have made a total mess of it. And the head of that technical committee is a former Premier League referee, and he was a very weak referee. Is
yeah.
David Ellery. David
It
Ellery
is.
is the chairman of that committee, and
Yeah,
him and his buddies, they have messed the whole thing up completely. It
it
really,
is.
guys, this whole issue is time to go back to basics. It
Yeah,
should be straightforward. Look what they do in rugby. They can make a decision in no time. Look what they
yeah,
do in cricket, how long it takes to make a decision. How long does it take to make a decision in tennis?
yeah,
No time.
Yeah.
But in soccer, oh my God. And it's the people who are there, honestly, and I do really believe this. I just talk straight, guys. That's why I've never been invited onto committees and so on, because they don't like my honesty. And that's tough. And if you don't like my honesty, well, then I'm not part of your committee. Let's tell the truth. Let's get back to basics. Football is a simple game. Let's
yeah,
keep it simple. What can be more simple than passing the ball to your teammate and shooting on goal? Okay,
yeah,
very simplistic perhaps, but now, and the amount of players that are diving and pretending to be injured, and
Right.
it's appalling, really. And the rest, again, it's our fault. It's our fault, and I include myself because I'm involved in refereeing now for over 50 years. From when I first started, both as a referee, as head of referees, in administration, in coaching, in mentoring, all the way along since 1972, 71, 72. I've been involved in refereeing in some capacity or another. And the things I see and the way that the changes that they have made to the laws of the game, you'd hardly even recognize the laws of the game. I'm not going to show the book, okay?
I was waiting for that. I was
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
waiting for
yeah.
that.
Same.
But what I would do to this committee is give them one of these. Say, I would do a bit of a Donald Trump, get the hell out of
Yeah,
here. Bring in you
yeah.
guys. Let's
Just
Yeah.
talk
stop the time.
sensible. Let's talk
Yeah.
But
sense.
yeah, yeah. But Errol, there's just one thing, and Anukash sir, sorry, you can go first. I am asking way too many questions. Sorry.
No,
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 no, no,
no.
no, not
Please,
at all.
please,
Not at all.
please.
Actually, I just wanted to ask one thing that the semi-automated referee VR is something which is also being talked about, and like there are things going on all the time. Like there's a, and I'm not saying this is true, but there's an argument that referees are maybe biased towards certain teams in the English Premier League, and like of course in the La Liga also, and a lot of Barcelona fans and a lot of La Liga fans say that Real Madrid, with all due respect to Doipan here because he's a
Yes,
huge Real Madrid fan, a lot
yes,
of people say that Real Madrid does have a sort of upper hand when it comes to the referees Now, all this is all hearsay at this point of time. But do you think that when it comes to multi-billion dollar corporations like the Premier League, like the La Liga, where there's so much of money involved, the chances of corruption is a lot more, and a lot of it goes under the radar because of the laws and because of the legal team that it's all protected by?
You know, that issue of corruption has been there, and there have been guys found to be corrupt, and in Europe, it's not just among black guys or Indian guys, or it's white guys as well. And there was a guy banned for life in Europe. I can't quite think of his name now. But certainly there was a guy in South Africa, he refereed South Africa and Senegal in a World Cup qualifier a couple of years back. And he gave a penalty, which was never, ever, ever, ever a penalty. I mean, just so ridiculous. And he gave the penalty, and South Africa won the game. And I think it was Senegal, or was he from Senegal? One or the other, anyway. And the other team protested. And FIFA carried out an investigation into this referee, and they found that he had large sums of money had been put in his bank account in recent times. And they concluded, anyway, that he had taken money to make sure that that South Africa would win. And he was banned for life, and rightly so, 100%. The game was replayed, and South Africa lost. They brought in other match officials. So there is the temptation is there. And I do hear reports from South Africa at lower level games that referees are taking money and taking bribes. I don't have any evidence. It's all, as they say, anecdotal. There's no proof has come true, but many people are saying that it is it's happening in South Africa. And again, any referee anywhere that indulges in this kind of activity should absolutely be banned for life and brought before the courts, because that is corruption, and corruption is a criminal offense.
There's just something that I wanted to ask when you were earlier speaking so much about South Africa, and maybe we will come back to all the refereeing things later. In general, were you in South Africa when the 2010 FIFA World Cup happened?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you tell us more about the experience of, probably because for someone who has spent his time in South Africa for 14 years, as you mentioned, and then to see that country host the biggest global event of the sport, can you probably share your thoughts about how it was, and of course, how the entire FIFA story over the last decade or so keeps developing in terms of football trying to go more global, trying to go to different parts of the world, which initially they probably did not do in the later stages of the previous century. And do you think that probably, and now also today, I was just reading before we began this podcast that Saudi Arabia is strongly bidding for the 2034 FIFA World Cup hosting events. So how was that event of, South, from a purely perspective of someone who has lived in South Africa, and then seeing, and already you knew South African football in terms of how the sport is in that country, and then to see a global event come to that country, the socio-economic impacts, or not really economic, the socio-cultural impacts of it. Can you please, I am personally interested to know more about that because of whatever you shared earlier.
It was a fantastic thing. Now, there have been lots of suspicions around how South Africa did get it. They were initially scheduled to get it in 2006, and they whatever happened. But with FIFA, there's a lot of politics involved.
Yeah,
and I hate them. I hate these soccer politicians who are just in it for their own good and to promote themselves and get all these freebie trips around the world. And because those guys fly they fly first class, and they stay in 5-star hotels, and they get a huge daily allowance, like pocket money. At what way back then, it was something like $500 per day, just spending money to buy sweets and buy newspaper. I mean, for heaven's sake. And they stayed in the best hotels, and they flew first class wherever they went. And then South Africa got it in 2010, but things have emerged since then that the SAFA, South African Football Association, paid bribes to certain individuals. The one guy that was mentioned was Jack Warner from Trinidad and Tobago. I think he was from out that area. And it's alleged that he took bribes. It's also alleged, and I say alleged because I haven't got any proof of it, that $10 million was paid to get the World Cup to South Africa. Now, it was a great World Cup, and they built beautiful stadiums, and they upgraded other ones to world-class level. I've been there, I've seen them, and I've been in them. But those stadiums are now empty. And even the top teams, unless you get the two top teams playing each other, like Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates, and lately Mamelodi Sundowns, who are from Pretoria, but so that Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates are from Soweto. And Soweto is probably the best known black township in the world in South Africa. And they are from, those teams were born there and sort of, generate all their fans from there. And when those two teams play together, they will fill a stadium. But you get two so-called middle of the table teams in one of those big stadiums, and you can hear yourself, you can hear the echo around the place. There's nobody there. There's nobody there. And it's such a shame. So they got the World Cup because I think some people felt that they were promised it in 2006. Now, what does that mean, promised? Who promised it? And for what reason? And then they got it in 2010. But there's still this huge allegation of the $10 million US dollar bribe that went to certain people to get it to be brought to South Africa. Now, South Africa mortgaged the country. They mortgaged the country to build all these stadiums and infrastructure and railway lines and motorways and highways. They spent, I can't remember, I don't know how much was spent, but they spent a fortune. Now, it was great, but they'll be paying back that investment, if you like, in the infrastructure for God knows, maybe the next 100 years. But the sad thing is the stadiums weren't built to be
sustainable,
eco-friendly, maybe, that they could be demolished and taken down. Like Australia had the Olympics way back, can't remember when, but the Olympic Stadium, and I've been in it, has now been reconverted and reconfigured, that it's now smaller. And they can, the running track, they can put seats on it and then withdraw them when they're not needed. So they could do things. And I think they did something with the World Cup in Qatar, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the stadiums were built in such a way that they wouldn't be there all the time because they would never fill them. Capacity is too great. So they built them in such a way that they can be sort of almost downgraded or not demolished, but taken apart and made into smaller stadiums.
Yeah.
Africa has these wonderful, beautiful stadiums, but are they going to spend money to upkeep them? Otherwise, they'll just fall into disrepair, and things will start going wrong, and people will start stealing. I don't know.
Yeah, there are many things. A couple of things come to my mind when we talk about this. The first thing is, so I'm a sports management graduate. I have done my master's in sports management, and I've developed into a bit of a sports academia type of a person. I love getting into the depth of different things which are related to sports. So I have the answer to one question that you had. The Olympics have been hosted by Australia twice so far. Once was in 1956, and the other year was when I was born. Actually, it was in 2000 when Sydney had hosted it. And quite interestingly, Australia is set to host it for the third time when Brisbane becomes the third city in the 2032 Olympics. And secondly, what you just mentioned over here, during my course when I was studying more about sports management, there was a particular lecture where we were taught about how Olympics were really Olympics, and then bane or a boon, question mark, because once you make the infrastructure, how is the infrastructure being really managed once the event is over? And even though there's a lot of revenue that comes because of hosting the events, and of course there have been so many incidents about Sepp Blatter and the entire sports washing concepts of the Argentina World Cup in mid 1980s. Now, Errol, what I wanted to ask you was, as we come to the end of this show, just for the record, we haven't, like, the number of episodes that have gone to in excess of an hour, we can count in one hand. So thank you for the
Yeah.
patience, for being so generous with your knowledge. One of the last questions, this is the last question that I have for this episode, and of course Anukarsh,
Well,
who's
we have to
been,
keep going now until we go over the hour, okay? So this will be the longest one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Errol, I just
Well,
wanted
at
to
least the
ask you,
history.
yeah, of course, I just wanted to ask you, in certain in a certain situation, as you are also young, Errol, not that we want to tell you you are old, but we are relatively younger than you in
You
age.
are much younger than me, believe me. And I don't have a problem with that.
But
Yeah.
so as we plan to spend our entire lives trying to work in sports, trying to do certain things for the first time, uh, I also read a bit of philosophy, and Max Muller, he had once mentioned that the ends justify the means. Now, if you pick that up and try to extrapolate into the sports world with its rich history, not only FIFA, other sports, how things have gone right, how things have gone terribly wrong in different sections of our history, do you think that while trying to create something 20, 30 years down the line, a sports project, it does not have to be at a scale of at a global scale, do you believe within the sports realms the ends justify the means, as long as the means is not terribly harmful to people, and the ends really, and the end position is really something that has taken the sports landscape forward? I hope I could make you understand what I'm trying to ask. So whatever
Yeah.
you understood of it, please tell me.
I do subscribe to that philosophy sometimes also, that the end does justify the means, because I want a job done and I want it done properly. And if I can't go around it, over it, or under it, then I'll go through it.
Yeah.
The proverbial or the metaphorical wall. If it's blocking your way, move it out of the way. Get the job done, and don't allow yourself to be hassled or hindered by silly things. And people will come up with all kinds of silly obstacles, and they'll put silly obstacles in your way. If you as a person have a goal, and an objective is part of that goal. The objective is to get to the goal. And if there's something blocking you, then move it out of the way. And if you can't move it out of the way, if you can't go around it, over it, under it, then go through it, because the
Yeah.
job has to be done. Now, depending on the situation, of course, the job has to be done. I like I said to you at the beginning of the show, I like to get things done 100%. And that's the way I am. I've always been that way. I've always been very protective of my honesty, my integrity, my good name. Those are very, very important. And, these are intangible things of a human person. These are things you cannot touch, like a good name, integrity, and honesty. They're not there. You can't feel them. They're not physically there, but they are part of you, and they will live long after you have died and moved on to the next world, or whatever world you believe you're going to. And maybe you don't believe you're going anywhere, but certainly when you pass away, people will remember you for the good that you did, that you were honest about things. And I've always prided myself on that I want to be totally and absolutely honest in everything I do. Sometimes people don't agree. Sometimes people don't like it, but I'm saying what I'm doing, I'm being honest about it. And I reach out to people who have similar ideals that I have. I have no time for people who are corrupt. I have no time for people who are trying to do shady deals and that sort of thing. I'm a referee. Referees have to be above reproach. They have to be honest at all times, do the best they can according to the laws of the game. Laws of the game, when you're making a decision, it can be very subjective. And that's true, because you, as a referee, you're making a decision in your opinion based on what you saw to be a free kick, a yellow card, a red card, a penalty kick, a corner kick. You're doing it from what you can see. Yes, we are human beings. Yes, we will get it wrong. Maybe that's why VAR was brought in, to try and alleviate those and to eliminate those types of mistakes. But it's been found now that VAR is not always getting it right either. Yeah. That's when somebody has to take control. That's where the referee has to kind of come in and say, thank you, VAR, I don't agree, it's a penalty kick, and make a decision. But they faff around and they're wondering and they're consulting. And referees are not supposed to do that. Referees are there to make decisions, but at all times do it in an honest and fair way, in your opinion, and make a decision based, because the law does say that, in the opinion of the referee. Clearly states it in Law 5, in the opinion of the referee, and that's a quote. And it's his opinion. And he's doing what he thinks is correct at the time. It may be proven to be wrong, but at least you've done what you thought was correct, with nothing else on your mind to try and cheat this team, or do this team out of a free kick. It's not that way at all. You do what you think is right at the time. You'll get it wrong because we're human beings, and human beings do make mistakes. That's part of our being. That's why we're in this world. That's why we were created, and we will make mistakes. Nobody will ever get it right. Not even the greatest scientists and geniuses, they all make mistakes. We're the same. So you can only do the best you can at the time, and with what you see in front of you. You can do no more. But at all times, try very hard to be honest in the decisions that you're making.
Yeah. Anukai sir,
by the way, that I might put that on my bucket list. Or maybe you can organize me a speaking tour or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing, actually. Errol, before we end this episode, it's staggering, honestly. I think me and Doipan, we are both very overwhelmed in a very nice manner with how much we have learned. And this has been a very unique episode in the kind of things we have talked about. Now, before you go, I just want to ask you two things. I know you have the enthusiasm of a 15-year-old, which I absolutely love and I get inspired by. But in your really long career, what is that one lesson which you have had, and which really defined you or made you change in a better way as a person, other than the professional aspect? And another question which I want to ask on the professional front, that is, which was the favorite match of your career in which you got to referee?
Sorry, what was the favorite what?
Which was your favorite match in which you got to officiate in throughout your career? One match that is most memorable to you.
Look, for any referee, the most important game to referee is a cup final. And be it in their own country or in another country, as happened to me. In South Africa, I did the cup final in 1988, the South African Cup final. And that's the pinnacle of any referee's career, to referee their country's cup final. Now, I was only in South Africa, remember, 3 years at that time. 3 years. And I ran the line in the 1987 Cup final. 86. And then in 1988, I refereed their FA Cup final. And that was between the two top teams, Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates. And I'll always remember that. And you can see some of my things behind there, but matches I've done and so on. the other match I did, which was memorable for maybe the wrong reasons, not for me certainly, but for the person involved in the incident that I'm just going to tell you about, was South Africa was just coming out of apartheid, and they were trying to get the country back because they had been completely banned from all international sports, including football. And so what the FA and the league decided to do was to bring out 2 visiting teams from overseas, and they would play against the 2 top teams from South Africa. And on the opening Sunday, they would the 2 visiting teams would play each other. They called it a soccer festival to kick off the proceedings, as it were. And then on the Wednesday, then one of the visiting teams would play one of the top teams in South Africa, and on the Thursday, the other team would play the other team, and then there'd be a conclusion on Sunday. So at that year was 1993. And so the 2 teams that they had managed to get were Manchester United, who had just won the new Premier League in England. It was the first year that it had been contested. Up to then, it was the old First Division, Second Division, and so on. But this was the Premier League. So Manchester United won the Premier League, and Arsenal had won the FA Cup, and they'd also won the League Cup. So they were double cup winners. And those were the 2 teams that had been signed up well in advance of the end of their season. So nobody knew that Manchester United were going to win the league and Arsenal were going to win the FA and the League Cup. And those are the 2 teams now contracted to come to South Africa. And on the first day, Manchester United and Arsenal played on the Sunday, and it was the 25th of November. And 25th of July. And I was given the game to referee Manchester United and Arsenal. And so Alex Ferguson was in charge.
I love how you made this entire context and then it culminated into a wonderful ending. So I love storytelling skills also absolutely on point, Errol.
Yeah.
When you think I was I've never written a book, and people say, you must write a book. So who the hell would buy my book, for goodness sakes? So I was given the game to referee, and I remember we met with Alex Ferguson, and in fact, I have...
Even though Pine has a biography in his room, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't read it. I will show it to Errol.
So we met.
Oh, interesting.
Wow, wonderful.
Can you send a picture of it to us after the episode?
Later. Yeah, it looks absolutely amazing. I'm also reading his book. Yeah, I'm also reading one of his 3 books over here, Errol, which I'm sure even you must have gone through at some point of time. You
Alex Ferguson.
Yeah, this one.
Not a chance. Not a chance. Not a chance. I remember saying to Alex Ferguson, George Graham was the manager of Arsenal at the time, and I said to him, I need a team sheet. Oh, we don't do teams. I said, please, I want a team sheet. I want a team sheet. And I still have them here because they scribbled it down on an A4 piece of paper. And the people playing were, Schmeichel was in goal, and Ryan Giggs was playing. David Beckham was playing. Roy Keane had just signed that summer from Nottingham Forest for Manchester United. He had just signed that year. And then on the other side, you had David Seaman in Arsenal, David Seaman in goal, and Ian Wright, and these guys, all those guys were playing. And I remember saying to the 2 managers, listen, guys, please, this is a friendly match. The people out there came to see the teams. They didn't come to see me, and they won't see me unless your players misbehave. Then they will definitely see me. So please not to misbehave, because if they do misbehave, I'm treating this as a normal league match. And guys, I've never refereed a friendly match in my life. I've refereed plenty of unfriendly matches that were supposed to be friendlies, and this was supposed to be a friendly. And I said, yellow and red cards apply. If the guys step out of line, no, we'll have no problem. Alex Ferguson, I remember him saying to me, There'll be no problem, he said. If any of my players are giving you trouble, just give me a signal, point about, and I'll take them off.
Okay.
We were hardly 10 minutes into the game, and there was a guy playing for Manchester United called Paul Parker, small African guy. And I pointed to Alex Ferguson and I pointed to Paul Parker. Alex Ferguson ignored me. Ignored me. Okay, the gloves are off. And then I booked him, Paul Parker, because he was really, and then in the second half, Brian Robson, by the way, he was then Man United captain and England captain. And the ball in midway through the second half, the ball was played in and into the Arsenal penalty area. Ray Parlour played for Arsenal. He put his hand up like this to protect himself. Now the ball was heading for his face. He put his hand up to protect him. They wanted a penalty. I said, not a chance. No way. Play on. And David Seaman got the ball. He launched it out, and Brian Robson ran alongside me and shouted in my ear, and I'm not going to repeat what he said, but he said you're a cheat with an F word in front of it. I said, I am not a cheat, and I'm definitely not an F cheat.
Yeah.
So I immediately pulled out the red card, and he was off. It nearly caused a diplomatic incident. My goodness, this is Brian Robson, England, Man United captain, England captain, sent off in South Africa. I had phone calls from media outlets all over the world wanting interviews, and I turned them all down because I made my decision. I'm not going to glorify it or, live in a little bit of fame that I'm suddenly on the front pages. I backed away entirely. I turned down all media interviews. And on the Wednesday, then when the next game was going to be played, after the Sunday, when I sent off Robson, the South African Football Association asked me if I would come to a meeting at the game in the press office and have a sit at a table with them and at a press conference. And I said, yeah, absolutely. On two conditions. I will not withdraw the red card and I will not apologize. No, we don't want to do that. We just want to throw cold water because it's causing it's a huge furore, not only here in Africa, but around the world. It's caused it. I said, why? Who's Brian Robson? Law 12 says foul and abusive or insulting language or behavior is a red card. He used foul and abusive language at me. So that to me gets a
red card. Yeah, absolutely. I totally saw it coming this time around.
I don't make any apologies. I don't make any apologies whatsoever for that. And I went to the meeting and I'm standing there waiting for him. And then the photographer saw me and started taking my photograph because I'm standing leaning against the wall waiting for him. And then one of the officials come out and said, sorry, Dr. Sweeney, Mr. Robson doesn't want to meet you. I said, okay. I said, you got me to drive 100 kilometers from my home at night to meet this guy, and now you won't meet me. So I said, well, that's fine. I said, good night. And I got into my car and I drove home. I had to send a detailed letter. At that time, of course, there was no email, so I had to fax it.
Which year was this? 94 you mentioned, right?
No, 93.
93. Okay.
Yeah, July 93.
Yeah.
And I had to send a faxed report to the FA in London, which I did. And I spelt it out in exact detail. And I always say that to my referees. If some player says something to you, don't be nice when you're putting in your report. Put down exactly what the player said to you, and resulting in you having to give him a yellow card. Put down exactly what. Doesn't matter how vile or rude or horrible the language is, and some of them can be really awful. Doesn't matter what it is. If they told you to, I'm trying to be nice, guys,
No, we get it.
When you put down, this player told me to F off and blah, 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 and put it down. That's exactly what I said. He called me a cheat.
Yeah.
And I faxed it to the FA. And as a result, a red card in England, a straight red card in England, is 3 matches ban.
Yeah.
If it's
Yeah.
two
Yes.
yellow cards, 2 yellow cards equal 1 red card, then it's 1 match ban.
One
But
match
this
ban.
was a
Yeah.
straight red card, and I had to fact, and he missed the first 3 games of the new season.
Is it also what referees write behind whenever they assign a yellow card or red card? I have often seen referees writing something behind that yellow card. So what is it exactly? Is it the minute of the match and the player?
Names of the player, I think. No?
Well,
Names of the
different referees have different ways. We used to have a little
Oh.
pocket, and we'd write
Okay.
down the name of the player.
Okay.
But since the yellow and red cards came out,
Yeah.
And they were brought out, by the way, after the 1966 World Cup. They
Yeah.
were brought out by a former English referee called Ken Aston, and he was driving home after watching a World Cup match, and the communication problem, because not everybody speaks English, and
Yeah.
he was driving home. He said there has to be a better way to get it across to the players that they are being cautioned instead of calling them over, taking a number. Some referees write a number. Some referees write on the card they have away, the home team and the away team, and they'll put down number 15 home team or number 6 away team, and so on. Others just the other times the fourth officials do it, but you have to keep a record. So different referees have different ways of doing it, so long as they get the facts right, and that's very important. And it's not difficult today, because as soon as a player is booked or red carded on television, it pops up on the screen. So if you got it wrong, you record the match, go home, and you can see it, and you'll get it right there. But we used to write the name. But then when you're refereeing in Ireland, in local or English-speaking countries, then you ask the guy for his name, and you write down the name he gives you. Now, some funny guys trying to be funny, they'd come along, and I've heard of one referee that when he asked the guy for his name to give him a yellow card, as a caution, when he asked him his name, he said Mickey Mouse. So I said, "What did you do?" He said, "I wrote down Mickey Mouse. I reported to the league, and the guy got 2-match suspension for being cheeky." Quite right. Maybe his name was Mickey Mouse. I mean, other guys used to say, "My name is George Best," or Ian Wright, or David Beckham. Maybe his name is David Beckham. How do we know? So you write down, he told me David Beckham, and I know other referees would say, "Come on now, I know you're not David Beckham, and I know you're not Mickey Mouse. Give me a proper name." "No, Mickey Mouse." "Okay, Mickey Mouse."
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned 1966. Well, my father, we don't have a lot of in-depth football discussions, but we always talk about 1966 as the year when England won its only FIFA World Cup, which is also the
World Cup.
which is also the year when my father was born. And I absolutely love how through sports references I have actually shared my age and my father's age throughout the course of this episode. But of course, and a small thing that I just did, while we were having this conversation, is that I quickly went through the durations of all the episodes that we have ever done before today, and only thrice before have we ever crossed the hour mark. And the longest episode that we have done is 1 hour and 2 minutes. The second episode, the other 2 episodes were 1 hour and a minute, and the third episode, which crossed an hour, was exactly one hour. So just for posterity, I thought now that we have spent 82 minutes, I'm going to ask one last and very, very crucial question, which I feel is going to have a very crucial question for us more than you, because I am kind of hoping for you to have a long answer to this, so that we finally cross 1 hour 30 minutes. And I don't think we are going to cross that anytime soon. But Errol, have you ever been to India? What do you think about the Indian people? What do you think about football in India? And in general, all things India. And you can feel free to be honest about it. And how do you think? And if you have ever visited, please share an experience. And we will, of course, host you if you ever plan to visit India next.
Yes.
I've never been to India.
That's a bummer for me.
Never been to India. I'm fascinated by the country, by its culture, by the different religions. I have an interest in, but I'm not active in, politics, I
Yeah.
know about your Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Yes.
But I'm not active. No, like I said, I'm interested in it. You've got
Yeah.
something like 1.4 billion people. You're the largest
Absolutely.
democracy in the world.
Yeah.
Um, but I've never been there. I would love to go there. For what reason? I don't know. Maybe somebody will phone me up and want me to give some lectures, some courses, some
It
mentoring
would be
of
really,
referees. Refereeing is my
yeah.
life. Refereeing
Yeah.
is absolutely my life. As I said to you at the beginning of this, or halfway through perhaps, I'm involved in refereeing in some sort or another since 1971-72 season when I started. And I was a very reluctant referee. There was a friend of mine who was a top referee here. He's since, and he said, "Why don't you join the?" For 50 years, I'm not sure.
As a country, but as when it comes to me and
With
Doipan, uh,
Followed cricket as almost like a Bible for all, because all the pandemic happened. Football was one of the first sports to have ever started. But I'll just probably
how
probe one. Yeah.
what kind of what do you get at the top matches? Football.
Football. Well, not a lot actually. I have the highest division in India. One of them is Kerala Blasters. It is one of all these other matches, and it's very less, probably even, like, just to imagine that the local club that plays for the highest division in the city that we live in, Punjab FC, their home tickets are free. You can go and visit the match at the stadium for no cost, absolutely, and still it is very empty. So that's why, probably, that's why this entire question of Indian football, and have you ever had someone else visit India, and what were the things that probably you have ever heard about Indian football?
No, I haven't, and I don't know anybody who's been there or who
Okay,
has
okay.
been to matches. But from what you're describing there, it's very similar to what they have in South Africa, because again, you have one or two big teams, and when they play each other, the stadium will be absolutely packed. But
Yeah.
mm,
there'd be lesser teams, if you like, lower down the divisions, that would play each other, and they might attract a couple of hundred people. But
Yeah,
yet they're in the
absolutely.
Premier League now. There's huge sponsorship for football in South Africa, because they
Yeah.
have people like the banks, Nedbank particularly. They sponsor one of the major cups. There's the Castle Lager, the
Yeah.
alcohol they from South African breweries. They they sponsor the league, and then they have Carling. Have you heard that drink, Carling Black Label?
yeah, yeah. Carling
They would
Cup used to
sponsor
be a cup in England.
the
League Cup.
well, the equivalent to the League Cup, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right, all right. Well, I think that's
League
it.
Cup, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're losing, we're breaking up there at times, but uh,
Yes.
no, like I said, I've never been to India. I've I've never had any reason to go there. Um, um, and nobody's ever
Probably,
invited me.
yeah. Probably the first
So
time when you visit India is also the time when we could actually physically meet. But thank you, Errol. We are not gonna keep you any longer. I remember at the
but you
beginning
got to
of the
wait
podcast.
one more minute because you got to wait one more minute so we go past 1 hour 30 minutes, and this record will
Yes,
never be broken. So,
yes,
so we have
absolutely.
to keep talking.
You
But
know,
I would love to see some Indian league games, and not necessarily the games, but I'd like to see how the referees are performing and
yeah,
what the standard of refereeing is. Um, Everybody can do with tutoring and mentoring and coaching, and improvement only comes when they are properly tutored and mentored by guys with experience who know what they're talking about. Of course, the old politics comes into it, and this is where it drives me crazy. I just call them soccer politicians, and these guys are only in it for their own good and what they can get out of and promoting themselves. And of course, FIFA also looks after these guys, and they fly them to here, there, and everywhere on the FIFA account, so they're well looked after. And as I mentioned earlier, they're they stay in five-star hotels and get all this money, and so they're never ever going to allow themselves to be threatened in any way in case their position within the FIFA or the national uh, organization is threatened, because then they're going to miss out on all these tournaments. And most times, they referees are the poor relations of football, and referees will always be blamed for things that go wrong. But so
yeah,
long as they are honest and fair and keep their honesty and their integrity and their good name, nobody can point fingers at them.
yeah,
We have had
absolutely.
a whole football game today.
Yeah, absolutely. We have had an entire football match, 90 minutes. Thank
Yeah.
you, Errol, for your
Yeah,
generosity.
90
Do you
minutes.
have a whis- Do you have a
And we
whistle
didn't
there,
have half
Errol?
time either.
Do you have a whistle?
Whistle that would,
Sorry?
Yeah,
full time.
a full-time whistle at
Sorry, I
home.
can't hear you.
I'm saying, do you have a whistle at home? A full-time whistle?
Filter position.
Yeah,
Whistle, whistle, whistle.
Oh,
the whistle.
whistle. Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, I haven't got I
I
haven't
think
got it here.
I think I think that
No,
would
I
be
haven't
one of
got
the
it here.
best
But I
ways.
do have.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, I've
wonderful.
got all I've got all my refereeing gear still, my watches, my red and yellow cards, my notebooks, my whistles. I've got them all. I keep them all. And I look at them sometimes and they give me memories. And you can see behind me here all my different trophies. And I'm trying to get
Yeah.
out of the way so you
No,
can
it
see
looks
Yeah,
them.
absolutely amazing. Yeah, it looks
Um,
yeah.
absolutely amazing,
Different
Errol.
trophies I got from different people. And this was my referee of the year award, which I won in
Oh,
1992,
Wow.
sponsored by
Excellent.
Adidas. And
It almost looks like
um,
Adidas. It looks like the
yeah,
Adidas
it was
logo.
sponsored by Adidas.
Yeah.
And you see the whistle. The whistle is there, sponsored by Adidas and the South African SABC, South African Broadcasting Corporation. And this was an award I got from SAFA.
Wow. Wonderful.
wow.
We are probably gonna ask you to someday take, we could actually start a Errol Sweeney memorabilia segment where Errol can really probably explain everything that he has at his place. But I'm sure,
Yeah.
yeah, in the interest of time, Errol, this is where we'll probably call it a day for this episode. But I'm sure everything that you have in your background would probably warrant an episode on its own. But thank you, Errol, for taking out time. Anukar sir, I think it's been I don't remember, I think it was last century when we started this episode.
Yeah, I think
Was the last century.
we have aged twice, I think, but in a good way, in a graceful way, because we
Yeah.
have had Errol with us. Thank you, Errol. I think we have both come out as wiser people, and a
Yeah.
lot of people who will listen to it and watch this will come out as wiser and more sorted people, more ethical people after listening to it. I think in a world where a lot goes right, a lot goes wrong, you have taught us what's correct. So thank you,
Yeah.
Errol. And we look forward to more collaborations with you, more associations with you, and having people as amazing as you, though we cannot replace you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
And can I just promote my show on a Monday night? It's called the Monday
Yeah,
Review Show. The
100%,
Monday
100%.
Review Show. It goes live on facebook.com/, oh, I meant to tell you this little story, / Hanging Judge Ref. And I got the name the Hanging Judge because when I did the 1998 and 1988 Cup final in South Africa, there was a huge secrecy around it as to who the referee was going to be. And I only found out on the Thursday that I was the fourth official. The game was on Saturday, 2 days later. And on the Thursday, they phoned me and said, "You're the fourth official." I said, "Okay, great." Now, I was all excited. I was only in the country 3 years. And now suddenly I'm fourth official in an FA Cup final. And then on the Friday night, I was already in bed because I always prepared for my matches. I never drank alcohol. I've never smoked. I've always liked to keep fit. And I was in bed. I always prepared very professionally. I was already in bed and I got a phone call at 10 p.m. Now, remember, the cup final is the next day. And
Yeah.
it was the chief executive. And he said, "Can you come to Johannesburg now for a meeting?" His name was Cyril Kubus. And I said, "Mr. Kubus, it's 10 p.m. I'm in bed. If I get out of
Yeah.
bed, it'll take me at least an hour or more to get to Johannesburg. It'll be 11 p.m. And then we'll have there'll be a meeting. It'll be 2 a.m. before I get home. And that's not good preparation for a cup final." He said, "You're right." He said, "I want to read you a letter from the executive committee." And I remember it. I have it somewhere. It said that your appointment as fourth official for the above game, the
League Cup.
FA Cup final, blah, 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 has been cancelled.
Okay.
And my heart dropped, has been cancelled. He said, "You are now the referee of the match." I said, "Oh my goodness." So I was so excited. I couldn't sleep anyway. I should have got up and went to Johannesburg. So the next day in South Africa, they have the newspaper, the front page is always on lampposts and things like that. They're advertising, they'll give you the front page. And on the front page, it said, "Sweeney is mystery ref. Big match control in the hands of the hanging judge." I'll see if I can get it for you. Do you see that one up there? Do you see that one? No, there.
Yeah.
Sorry. There. See that one there with the medal?
Yeah, with the medal. Yes, with the medal.
Yeah.
Blue ribbon, right? Yeah.
And that was the front page of the Saturday Star, front page, national newspaper. Sweeney is mystery ref. Big match in control of the hanging judge. And that's how I first got the nickname, the hanging judge. And even to this day, it stayed with me. And I don't mind. I take it as a compliment. So
Yeah, absolutely.
my Monday review show goes out on Monday evenings at 8 p.m. It's facebook.com / hanging judge ref. And that's how you get it. It's a live show. It goes on for about 30 minutes. And we discuss all things refereeing and decisions and red cards and yellow cards and all that sort of thing. It's all about refereeing.
So please be there. And thank you, Errol. Thank you so much. Sincerely appreciate it.